Hello and welcome back to Born to Rant. I'm Brandon, and this week we are here to talk about a largely forgotten 90s horror movie with sets so big they had to be filmed in Howard Hughes' famed Spruce Goose Hangar. The movie that also should have been our first collaboration between Steven Spielberg and Stephen King, and a movie I just happen to own a screen-used prop from. That's right, this week we are taking a look at 1999's The Haunting, how it came to be, why it's actually awesome in spite of its mediocre script, and its legacy 25 plus years later. Now, The Haunting was a movie that I remember my mom going to see in theaters and then coming home and telling me all about how awesome it was. What can I say? My mom had notoriously bad taste in movies, especially horror movies, and this was no exception. And over the years, I've seen this movie probably 3 or 4 different times. It's not really a movie that I've given much thought to in the 25 plus years since it was released, but then something strange happened. So my wife has a very cool job in the entertainment industry.
My wife!
And one day she sent me a picture of a prop that one of her coworkers had placed in her office, and within 5 seconds I knew exactly what movie it was from, and well, without any further ado, here it is. One of the sets of wooden children from above Nell's bed now lives with my wife and I, and will forever be a part of our Halloween decor. And yes, we do actually decorate for Halloween in mid-September. Look, some millennials are Christmas people, some are birthday people, or Disney adults. My wife and I are Halloween people.
My wife!
Every year we actually create a Halloween watch list and watch a minimum of 31 horror movies in the month of October. And I will be revealing 2025's calendar at the end of this video, and I'll also talk a little bit about how I'm planning for this channel to operate for the month of October. And anyway, after receiving this cool and creepy prop, I found myself dying to revisit The Haunting, a movie that my wife hadn't even heard of, to see if it held up. And I gotta admit, I was both impressed and disappointed. Because while The Haunting screenplay may be incredibly mediocre, the sets in this movie are some of the most beautiful sets I've ever seen. And they were so massive in scale that they couldn't even fit them on the biggest soundstage in Hollywood. They had to upgrade to a giant airplane hangar. Like, just look at this foyer that the mansion opens up into. It's so massive and beautiful, and I love the spiral design on the floor. And before we go any further, just a quick reminder that Born to Rant is a completely independent channel, and if it means anything to you, I don't use AI in the making of my videos. And with all of that out of the way, let's dive into how 1999's The Haunting came to be. The origins of The Haunting obviously begin with Shirley Jackson's 1959 novel, The Haunting of Hill House, but what you might not know is that this movie's origins start with 2 men who asked to have their names completely removed from the movie: Steven Spielberg and Stephen King. Now, I have said many times throughout my life that the Stevens are the biggest influences on me as a fan of fiction. Spielberg gave me a sense of whimsy and adventure, and King scared the shit out of me and taught me that I love horror. So, in 1996, Papa Spielberg calls up Uncle King, and the two start talking about how much they love Robert Weiss's 1963 adaptation of the novel, The Haunting, and how much they both love it and thought of it as the absolute pinnacle of haunted house horror. So the two decided that this would be the perfect opportunity for them to finally work together. That is until King turned in his first draft of the screenplay, and he didn't particularly like the feedback he was given, so he took his screenplay and turned it into the miniseries Rose Red, which I absolutely will be covering on this channel down the road. And once King was out, Spielberg brought on first-time screenwriter David Self to tackle rewriting the script. And David Self is not someone with a ton of titles under his belt, but he did do an uncredited rewrite on The Bourne Identity, and he wrote 2002's Road to Perdition. While Self may have sole screenwriting credit on The Haunting, there was also an uncredited rewrite done by Michael Tolkien, who had already been nominated for an Oscar for his screenplay for 1992's The Player. Now here's where things get really interesting, because after Self's script was finished, Spielberg got word that Tom Cruise had signed on to be the lead of Minority Report, a movie that Spielberg was producing, not directing at the time. At the time, Jan De Bont was set to direct. Now at this time, Jan De Bont really had begun to make a name for himself. He'd already directed Speed and Twister, but he was also the cinematographer on some movies you might have heard of, like Die Hard, The Hunt for Red October, and Flatliners. He also directed the massive failure Speed 2, Cruise Control, so he really needed a big hit to get back on track. And at the time, Minority Report looked like the perfect opportunity for him to do so. However, upon Tom Cruise joining the cast of Minority Report, Steven Spielberg stepped in and he offered to switch movies with De Bont, so he moved to directing The Haunting and Spielberg moved over to direct Minority Report, and De Bont got to work on putting his cast and crew together. As for the cinematography of The Haunting, originally this was set to be handled by Caleb Deschanel, who'd already been shooting movies for 2 decades at this point. He also directed some of my favorite Twin Peaks episodes. However, within just a week or 2 of filming, Deschanel would leave the project over creative differences, and Carl Walter Lindenlaub was brought on board to replace him. And Lindenlaub was having a great run in the 90s, having shot Stargate, Independence Day, and The Jackal all within the last 5 years. And on November 30th, 1998, The Haunting went into production with a budget of $80 million, primarily filming in Long Beach, California at Howard Hughes' dome-shaped hangar, and ironically enough, Carl Walter Lindenlaub had actually already shot here once before for Stargate. As far as post-production goes, the one and only Phil Tippett was brought on board to handle the special effects for the movie, and Tippett is someone you might know from his work on movies like Star Wars and Jurassic Park. So on July 23rd, 1999, The Haunting was released into theaters where it made $33.4 million on its opening weekend against its $80 million budget. It was also #1 at the box office, beating out the opening weekend of Disney's Inspector Gadget and the second weekend of American Pie. The Haunting would go on to make a worldwide total of $177.3 million, making it an objective success for the studio and everyone involved. But while the movie may have been a hit at the box office, it was torn apart by critics. It currently hosts just a 17% critical score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 42 on Metacritic. And as you can see, audiences didn't seem to like this movie all that much either. And with all of that out of the way, I'm here to tell you all why The Haunting is actually worth your time in 2025. And I think it's time that we dive deep into this movie and everything that makes it awesome.
Wow, you're so dominant.
The movie opens by introducing us to our lead character, Eleanor, played by Lili Taylor, and we learn that she'd been taking care of her mother, who recently passed away. However, upon her mother's death, she learns that her brother-in-law, Lou, has been named the executor of the will, not her. And Eleanor, who we'll just call Nell moving forward, and her sister are arguing about money and what to do with the house. And there are 2 moments that really stand out to me in the scene. The first is Nell saying,
"Do you understand that I have nowhere to go?"
which is just kind of a heartbreakingly honest line. The other is when Richie here bangs on the wall with his dead grandma's cane and yells at Nell. And look, I know he's just a kid, and he never went on to do any other acting outside of this movie, but this is one of the worst line readings I've ever heard.
"Eleanor, help me. I gotta pee."
That being said, it does feel so odd that it makes the entire scene have this air of creepiness to it. So Nell throws the family out of her house and then receives a mysterious phone call telling her to check the paper and sign up for a scientific study on insomnia. Cut to our introduction of Liam Neeson as Dr. David Morrow. And he's really here just to vomit up exposition about why he's taking a bunch of insomniacs to come stay with him at a supposedly haunted house under false pretenses. Which leads directly into Nell arriving to Hill House. And we get a fun cameo from Bruce Dern as Mr. Dudley. I really like his creepy little monologue here as he undoes the chain. It's then time for us to get our first look into the amazing sets that were built for Hill House. And fun fact, this shot of Nell opening the door from outside and her walking into the house were shot weeks and weeks apart. And I guess now it's time for me to really gush over Eugenio Zanetti and his team's work, because I mean, just look at this set. Look at all of these statuettes and carvings and the tile work on the floor. You can say The Haunting is a bad movie. That is totally fine. I might even agree with you, but you cannot deny that this is, without a doubt, one of the most impressive sets ever built for a crappy horror movie. I don't know. This shot for me is the perfect marriage of Eugenio Zanetti's work and Lindenlaub's cinematography. So Nell makes her way through the house looking for Mrs. Dudley, played by Marion Seldes, who I embarrassingly mostly know as Mrs. Hess from Home Alone 3. Yeah, that's right. I've seen Home Alone 3 multiple times. Mrs. Dudley then shows Nell to her room and gives us a very creepy little monologue about not staying after dark and no one coming after dark if they need help.
No one will come any nearer than that in the night, in the dark.
And I like that Nell really clocks how weird of a speech this is immediately. We're then introduced to Catherine Zeta Jones as Theo, and I like that she's a polar opposite character from Nell, but the two connect right away. I love that they're both immediately enchanted by the house and not at all freaked out. Personally, I think Theo's description of the house is spot on.
Sort of Charles Foster Kane meets the Munsters or something.
My favorite part of this introduction is Nell helping out Mrs. Dudley with her creepy speech and how uncomfortable Nell gets when Theo starts changing in front of her. This is also where it's revealed that Theo is a bisexual woman in an open relationship. Seriously, I remember this was actually a big deal in 1999. Like, it was one of the first things I remember hearing about the movie. Once Theo is all settled in, the two start exploring the house, and we get to preview a bunch of the beautiful sets that we'll be hanging out in throughout the movie. And then we run into Owen Wilson as Luke. Dr. Morrow and his two assistants arrive to the house shortly after, and the group has dinner together, and we learn a little bit more about Theo and Luke and their insomnia. Dr. Morrow also really hammers into them that it is an insomnia study.
You know, like a liar.
The group then moves into what I guess we'll call the living room, and Dr. Morrow tells the group of Hugh Crane, his wife, and the creepy legends that surround the house. But the main reason to talk about this is that I think it's kind of funny that the only person suspicious of this house right away is Dr. Morrow's assistant, and the house quickly tries to blind her by snapping a piano wire into her face, which does get her out of the house and movie immediately. This is also like the goriest moment of the movie. There's some actual death later on, but I think this is the most blood we actually see in the movie. That night, while trying to sleep, Theo and Nell are woken up by loud banging sounds throughout their rooms, and Nell runs to Theo, and the best part of this is the CGI breath that they have because the room's temperature drops dramatically. And this is actually a pretty creepy little scene, I will give it that. However, the entire scare is brushed off as being the loud pipes in the house making noise after Theo took a bath. Once Nell is back in bed, we get this creepy CGI child's face in a sheet, which was apparently a holdover from when Spielberg was working on the movie. Apparently one of his kids draped a sheet over their face and the outline creeped him out. Nothing to do with the movie, but just a little fun fact for y'all. The next morning, Morrow has the group filling out some mazes and tests, and Nell gets locked in the living room with the big fireplace and sees something moving inside it. Upon investigating, the group decide that it must have been this massive swinging flume, and upon leaving the living room, they find that someone has written "Welcome Home, Eleanor" on this wall and Crane's portrait. And I like that it leads to these four being really upset and angry with one another. I think realistically, they're all just terrified because there's absolutely no way any one of them could have pulled this stunt off quickly or on their own. None of them also have any reason to try something like this. That night, Nell is woken up again, and we get the best shot of my children in the entire movie. That is them right there. But seriously, Nell is woken up by the sound of ghostly voices calling out to her, and look, I grew up watching Scary Movie 2 like 100 times, so watching this scene in particular, all I can think about is the moment in Scary Movie 2 where Cindy is woken up by the ghostly voices who get frustrated with her and tell her to
check the fucking music room.
So Nell gets up and follows these creepy little bloody footprints and finds Crane's secret hidden study and his secret hidden ledger that shows that he ran a sweatshop, and mysteriously all of the youngest children have had their names crossed out. The next morning, Nell wakes up and finds that Dr. Morrow has carelessly left his paperwork and tape recorder sitting out for just anyone to find, so Nell plays it and learns the true nature of the experiment and then goes to tell Theo and Luke. However, while talking to them, she sees a creepy ghost of Crane's wife Renee, who unalived herself in the house, which causes Nell to run back to Crane's study, where she finds a photo album that has pictures of Crane and his second wife, Carolyn. And Carolyn's ghost picture points Nell back to the fireplace, and when she opens it, she finds bones and a skeleton pops out at her. Honestly, a great jump scare. It actually got me when I was rewatching the movie. Nell then runs to tell the group everything she's learned, and they understandably think she's having a full-blown psychotic breakdown. Later that night, Nell is woken up yet again by the ghostly voices, and this time learns that Carolyn was pregnant, had a baby, and escaped the house before Crane's evil could overtake them. It's also revealed that Nell is the great-granddaughter of Carolyn. And I gotta admit, this information is not very clearly shown to the audience. It's really not until Nell tells the group about it that it actually clicked for me that she is related to the house. The group actually find Nell at the top of this rickety staircase, and the scene of Morrow climbing up to get her is tense and fun, and apparently Liam Neeson is scared to death of heights, so shooting the scene was not exactly fun for him. However, he does succeed in rescuing Nell and gets her back into bed, and things seem to have calmed down. That is until the house comes alive trying to drown Dr. Morrow and pinning Nell to her bed with giant metal spikes while also glaring at her. Finally, these idiots decide it's time to leave the house. The only problem is that the gate is locked, and Morrow gave the only key to his assistants who left to go to the hospital 2 days ago and then never came back. While Luke tries ramming into the gate with Nell's car, almost getting killed in the process, Nell runs back into the house, now fully understanding the past and what needs to be done to set the children free. Unfortunately, as she's trying to get the group back out of the house, Luke starts bashing in another one of Crane's portraits with a giant candlestick, and the house doesn't like this at all, so it trips him onto a rug and pulls him into the fireplace. And this shot of the three characters chasing after him had to be shot like 10 or 15 times, and apparently Liam Neeson got winded pretty quickly, but Zeta Jones never did. She also ran faster than him in every take, which led to him calling her the Welsh Gazelle, and I don't know, I just kind of thought it was cute. So anyway, Luke gets thrown into the fireplace and gets beheaded by the giant swinging flume we saw earlier. All of this leads to the ghost of Crane finally showing himself and Nell realizing that he feeds on fear, so she simply tells him she's not afraid of him, you know, like the end of A Nightmare on Elm Street. And Crane gets pulled into this creepy bronze door where he will be trapped forever. He tries to take Nell with him into the door, but the spirits of the children save her. Well, kinda. I mean, she still dies, but she's not trapped in purgatory or going to hell. So Nell and the children's souls go to heaven, and Theo and Dr. Morrow wait for Bruce Dern to show up the next morning. And I like that we end with Dern saying,
"Find out what you wanted to know, Doctor?"
And the movie takes us out with Jerry Goldsmith's, pardon the pun, haunting score. I think he really captured the essence of what a haunted house score should be with the score for this movie. So 25 plus years later, what is the legacy of 1999's The Haunting? Well, I think it's widely considered to be a pretty crappy horror movie. Like I said, you won't see Spielberg or King's names anywhere in the credits because they were both so unhappy with how things turned out. And I get it, it's pretty underwhelming. I kind of think the entire movie just falls apart in the third act, but like I've said repeatedly throughout this video, this isn't a movie you watch because it's good. This is a movie you watch to appreciate the craftsmanship that went into making the movie. Honestly, for me, watching this movie again, I just found myself wanting to rewatch Scary Movie 2, which really riffs on The Haunting hard for its overall plot. I mean, the portraits of Kane and Crane are virtually identical, and I feel like there are more than a few millennials like me who grew up watching Scary Movie 2 on a loop and not The Haunting. Damn, should I do a video on Scary Movie 2? Let me know in the comments. All that being said, if you're looking for a short, not so scary haunted house movie to put on your October watch list, you could do a lot worse than The Haunting. Just really remember the beauty of the sets is what makes this movie worth watching, not the script. Sorry, David Self. We did also get another very loose adaptation of Shirley Jackson's novel by Mike Flanagan in 2018, and I know people are real hot and cold on him, but I thought Haunting of Hill House was just okay. Personally, I think the best thing he's done is Midnight Mass, which is another one I know people are split on. Let me know if you guys want a Midnight Mass video. I would love to break that show down. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you for watching. It truly means the world. As a special thank you, here is my wife and I's watch list for next month. And I'll be putting up a poll on Monday, September 22nd, and you guys will vote for what movie I'll cover from this calendar on Thursday, October 2nd. And we will do this for the entire month of October with a new poll going up every Monday until we finish out the month. And before we go, as always, an extra special thank you to all of my supporters over on Patreon. You all make these videos possible. If you'd like to join the Born to Rant Patreon, there's a link in the description below. Patrons get to help me choose what videos to cover on this channel, access to an exclusive Discord server, and early access to new videos. And just another reminder that Born to Rant is a completely independent channel, and I use no AI in the making of my videos, so your support means a lot. We release new videos covering all of your childhood favorites every Thursday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific time, so please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.